sure if we were going to get things matched up in this way because there is a random pairing to determine which teams play which. So all right, well, we're going to get started. Looks like first up we've got a triplicate spirits. It's going to be really hard to say no to that. I mean, we've seen all weekend how powerful those 3 1-1s could be. Also in this pack, we've got an Oresco Swiftclaw in white, Circle of Flame, the Wrong of Flame card.
Yeah, Triplicate Spirit's pretty much a slam dunk pick out of this pack. He's hoping to table that Razorfoot Griffin, but it's pretty unlikely he's going to be able to. He might also table something like Bronze Sable, which can trade with things like Curse Spirit, making it better than most of the 2-1 bodies in the set. Oresco Swiftclaw, another body that he can table. Not the best card in this set, but you're happy to have that either way when you're an aggressive white deck that's looking to convoke things out like Triplicate Spirits.
And there is something for us to keep an eye on in this Ensoul artifact that's in this pack as well. It's an archetype that it's a little less well supported when there's only 6 packs, as we see Froelich pick the very obvious Triplicate Spirits out of the pack. But knowing that Ensoul artifact is in the pack is going to make it easier for him to recognize if certain sets of artifacts fail to come back, someone else might be working their way towards that. So we've got a Raise the Alarm, which is going very well in the Convoke theme of his first pick so far. I mean, beyond...
Oh, yeah,
you got Raise the Alarm, Krenko's Enforcer is another very important card to keep in mind for this pack. That card is effectively unblockable most of the time. Selfless Cathar, which you certainly don't pick over the Raise the Alarm. But definitely worth keeping in mind that card is in the pack. In a 6-man draft, he might see that make a lap.
Yeah, and I think it could make a lap, and if it does, he's going to be very happy about it.
The one reason it might not make it back is because he did pass 2 reasonable other white cards in this first pack around the table. So this pack itself is actually a little on the weaker side, especially compared to some of the packs that we've seen. So yeah, we see that Raise the Alarm hit his pile.
Yeah, I think the other consideration there might have been Satyr Wayfinder, but Raise the Alarm just on theme, gets to stick with 1 color of cards. Definitely better, leaves his options more open when he's taking other cards.
Yeah, the Satyr Wayfinder, it's important to keep in mind that while it obviously shines in a green-black deck, it's still very good in the green-white decks where it acts as a way to both get you mana and provides a body that allows you to use, Convoke or cast your Convoke cards a little bit easier. So,
definitely. I mean, it's card advantage in that way.
It's a very sick draft when you are sitting with Reid Duke passing to you and you're shipping cards along to Huey Jensen.
Yeah. Pretty impressive draft here.
All right, so we have a Razorfoot Griffin as the lone white card in this pack. There are some pretty solid additional cards. Quickling is very, very powerful.
Yeah, so is Ancient Silverback. I think that the pick here is between probably Ancient Silverback, Razorfoot Griffin, and Quickling, and he obviously brings those to the front of the pack. Razorfoot Griffin, obviously on color, which is nice, but the power level of the 2 other cards is slightly higher than the Razorfoot Griffin. So,
is this early enough in the pack for you to start speculating into what your second color might be?
Well, the thing is it's not necessarily even speculation on a second color when you're team drafting because you're taking a powerful card away from the people around you. But by passing that pack, they'll be able to correctly identify whether or not the player on his left is in either green or blue based on whether or not Paul Cheon had seen a Quickling or an Ancient Silverback in his 5th pick.
Not to mention there's a very powerful signal that he just sent of a pack with no white cards that he is the white drafter to the right.
Definitely.
All right, so this pack is very light on playable white cards. The cards of value in this pack, Soulmender's not terrible, but it's not great. Kurkrush is a 4-mana 4/3.
Which is great. 3 toughness is wonderful.
We've already passed the Quickling along. You see that Aeronauts in the pack as well. There's also a couple of solid red cards, both Crowd Favor and the Kurkrush, as well as the Torch Fiend are all reasonable cards to go in an aggressive white deck.
Definitely.
Looks like he's thinking between the 4/3 rare and the Tinkerer. He does know that he's got, again, very unlikely that it's going to factor high into his opinion, but there is that Soul Artifact that he shipped around in first pack that he might be able to see back should things happen that direction.
Yeah, it's definitely true. And Aeronaut Tinkerer just has a 2/3 for 3. Pretty strong in M15 Limited. 3 toughness. We've been talking about it all weekend, and we'll continue talking about it through the top 4. Just a really important stat to have when you're playing this format.
And this is one of the decks that actually Ornithopter becomes kind of a hidden little gem in, because in addition to working with the many Convoke cards you're likely going to be end up with, the ability to turn on the blue Artifact Matters cards is very, very important.
You know, here, this is an interesting pack. Fester Gloom, Sungrace Pegasus, and Heliod's Pilgrim, probably the best cards in this pack. Oh, there's also a Zathrid. Yep. And he takes the Sungrace Pegasus, probably the best white 2-drop, so a really nice pickup there for him.
Although it is certainly hard to discount the Heliod's Pilgrim.
Well, then.
Well, alrighty then. Sanctified Charge, man, did we see a card do as much work as Sanctified Charge over the course of this weekend? Like,
no, not at all. I think Sanctified Charge, I mean, it was normally in conjunction with Raise the Alarm and Triplicate Spirits that it really just blew games wide open, but he already has a Raise the Alarm and a Triplicate Spirits in his pile. So, I mean, an obvious pick there for Eric Froelich. He's got to be ecstatic about that.
Easy selection. He does have to ship a Nimbus of the Isles along, which, I mean, to be honest, is slightly unfortunate if he's considering trying to move into blue, because he's shipped a couple of reasonable blue cards along, but we'll see how things go in the next pack. Like, it's likely he probably continues to pick up the white card since he's drying that up almost entirely.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely white, and blue, not necessarily. I mean, he passed a blue Paragon, he passed a Quickling, he passed, now another blue card, so with all of that going on, I don't think that blue's going to be very open in the second pack, but then again, you never know. Not a single white card coming back here for him.
Nor did the Ensoul Artifacts, notably. All right, so what we're looking at now is a whole bunch of nothing, a Negate, a Zoff Shade, and a Rummaging Goblin. Well, at this point, what do you take, given what you've got?
I mean, I think Negate is fine. Chronostutter also fine. Miner's Bane and Rummaging Goblin are definitely the two best cards in the pack, but if you think that Paul, to your left, is in red, you want to be able to give him a playable card.
Right.
And you're going to give Huey a playable red card either way.
Right.
So you really just, it's not a big deal. It's not like your teammates are going to be upset with you for passing either of those.
All right, so it looks like we've got a Statute of Denial. This pack is running a little bit long. We've got the Tyrant Machine, otherwise known as Pricey Manipulator. Not as good in an aggressive deck. Actually, it's not too bad if you need to force through some points, but when most of your creatures have evasion, it seems like it's probably a little bit on the lower side. I mean, unless you're going to, like, if you've got an artifact sub-theme, having a 2-mana card that you can slip into play is actually not terrible.
Yeah, it's not the worst when you have Ensoul Artifacts and are not Tinkerers and things like that. How
do you feel about Caustic Tar?
Caustic Tar is a nice game-ending spell. I mean, he knows that there's a Heliod's Pilgrim that didn't come back, so that's somewhere at the table. The other thing is he's definitely interested in a hook here. So he's passed a good amount of blue cards. He's probably going to want to continue taking blue cards. Evolving Wilds is a pretty nice pickup here. So is Amphan Pathmage. It's actually pretty surprising to see a land like that going this late at a table with this caliber of players, because generally speaking, the higher the skill level at the table, the more likely people are to pick up lands like that.
I mean, 4 cards out of that pack were reasonable cards.
Soul Mender
comes back.
You never know when you end up playing against the Lava Axe guy and you want to sideboard that in. Also, you might end up with a couple of Johnny's Pridemates.
Yep. So you get a Zathrid Slabblade, goes ahead and takes the Rune Clawbear. All right, do you take that second negate? Yeah, I didn't think so.
Yeah, it's just, too overwhelming.
Clever girl. All right, so right now, I mean, it's very clear, like, based on what we've been shipping around, what do you think is happening to your left?
It's pretty difficult to say. I think that Huey is most likely green, and green-black is probably the most open, or green-red.
Okay. What makes you think that he was in green?
The Ancient Silverback.
Okay.
I think that is very clearly the most powerful card that got passed in that direction.
Okay. Well, let's
also, the Satyr Wayfinder was almost certainly taken third, where there was very little in the way of even playable cards from the pack. Definitely not first picks. So, Satyr Wayfinder obviously leans somebody into green-black, and then he also happened to pass a silverback. So,
okay. And it seems pretty clear based on the cards that he got that white seems like he's in the right seat to be white, correct?
definitely.
Okay, so we see his curve so far. He's got a pretty reasonable setup. A couple of 2-drops, 4-drop skips. He's missing a little bit of the middle, but I mean, he has a nice solid 7 or so cards for the core of his deck, which is, very, very good after the first pack.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, if you want to end up mono white, you want to have like 9 or 10 after pack 1. This is kind of like panic mode. But here he has a couple different options. Like, he could end up being a white-green deck. He can end up being a white-blue deck. Either way, it's fine. And, you don't really want to play a card like Tireless Missionaries, but it's not the end of the world when you have to.
Okay. Well, it's time to see what his second pack is going to hold for him. So we crack this bad boy open. All right, peels to the back. Was that a soul? Oh, no, it was a Cruel Sadist. Ooh, and a stab wound. Man, that's unfortunate that he couldn't get that Heliod's Pilgrim to come back around. So let's look through this pack really fast. We've got a Kinsvale Skirmisher, the Cruel Sadist, a Nimbus of the Isles, an Invasive Species, and then that Stab Wound. A Netcaster Spider, and an Inferno Fist. So there's actually a pretty solid number of good cards in this pack.
Yeah, even a Void Snare. He's going to be a very aggressive creature-based deck. Void Snare at its best in those types of decks. I would be surprised if he took something besides Stab Wound or Kinsvale Skirmisher. Stab Wound really one of the best uncommons in the set.
Okay.
And he did not see many black cards come through him in pack 1. So Reid is also the type of player who really likes black cards in this format. And passing Reid Duke a Stab Wound is pretty rough.
Plus, I mean, you also have to factor in if Ifro didn't see very many black cards in the first pack, it follows that Huey probably didn't either. Therefore, it makes it a little easier to possibly pick up some black cards coming through this way, unless Huey had a reason to be black.
Yeah, Sungrace Pegasus, again, we've talked at length about how that's probably the best 2-drop that White has in this set. It's just so strong. When you can make it into a 2/3, it obviously becomes much more powerful. It's at its best in decks that have Heliod's Pilgrims to search up Marked by Honors, or in green decks that have things like Living Totem. And right now, his deck looks like it's going to end up either white-blue or white-green, so wouldn't be surprised if he took that, and he goes ahead and does.
This format is an interesting expression in the difference between Oresco Swiftclaw here and Oresco Swiftclaw previously. So let's take a look here. Looks like we see that Living Totem you were talking about earlier in the pack.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, there's a Brawler's Plate, which, I mean, he already has 2 Sungrace Pegasus, so he might be okay with taking that also.
Okay.
Living Totem, though, is probably not only the best card in the pack, but also combos nicely with those Pegasus.
Okay.
And could easily move into green here.
He also has a very likely chance of picking up a pretty solid sideboard card. Assuming that Undergrowth Scavenger is gone, that Plummet might still be in the pack for him to pick up later. And having those sideboard cards is actually fairly important in these team drafts.
Definitely. And, I mean, he's definitely hoping to pick up that Plummet on the wheel. That's not something you want to take very early. Even though it is quite powerful, I imagine that's going to be a card that increases in people's pick orders as this format progresses.
Okay. Well, time to see what cards are coming through Huey.
Well, he went ahead and took the Living Totem there, which means he's definitely leaning toward the green-black deck.
Interesting.
Wow, a Netcaster Spider, one of the very best green commons that's available in the set.
There's also a Covenant of Blood and a Titanic Growth in this pack, so it's definitely looking like either this pack was highly powered. There must have been a good card in the second color that one of the players who has left his guy, 'cause he's getting these green cards through.
Yeah, he is getting a lot of green cards here. So Huey may have taken a rare of another color. Maybe he values Ancient Silverback much differently than I do. But
yeah, there were other options. Well, let's see that Netcaster Spider. We saw that card do work. I mean, there were multiple games we saw a player get 2 Netcaster Spiders and play at the same time, and the offense just shut down on the other side. All right, so this pack, it's looking like Marked by Honor and Verdant Haven and Bronze Sable are the reasonable cards out of this pack. Is there any reason to not take Marked by Honor when you've got double Pegasus in your deck already?
I like taking Marked by Honor. I mean, he doesn't have any Pilgrims, and Marked by Honor is pretty weak in a Pilgrimless deck.
Okay.
Still, though, just the off chance of picking up Pilgrims later on, the fact that you have double Sungrace Pegasus, the ability to build a gigantic life-linking flyer, those are definitely reasons to go ahead and take that mark.
Okay. All right. This pack comes along. So we see a Titanic Growth, a return to the ranks. He does have a number of 2-drops that aren't terrible. I mean, can you take that card over Titanic Growth, though?
I don't think you can. Congregate is pretty good in this format also. You get into a lot of raises.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I don't think he's going to take Congregate. I think Titanic Growth is very easily the best pick here. I think it's one of the best green commons in the most aggressive green-white decks.
Now, if he had a copy of Heliod's Pilgrim, could you reasonably see him taking Oppressive Race here?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think that Mark by Honor is just way better. Oh, wow. And he does take the Congregate. I'm really excited to see how highly he values that card.
All right, looks like the invasive species came back for him. That pack is filled with black, blue, and green cards.
Yeah, one of the other reasons why he might have taken Congregate last pick is that he still doesn't know whether or not he's green, white, or white-blue.
Okay.
He knows he's playing white, but...
Well, does this Gather Courage and Shaman of Spring make it fairly apparent to him that he should be green as a second color?
Probably. I mean, it's really weird because he can't really cut off one of the colors that he wants to here.
There is still an Encrust in the pack, too.
Encrust is quite good.
This has actually been a fairly difficult second round of packs for Reaper. I mean, in a good way, but lots of options. Gather Courage is what ends up getting the nod. So Ephro's going to be... it's going to be really, really interesting to see what stuff starts to come around in the third pack, considering... I mean, I personally didn't expect to see this bevy of blue and green cards coming around this pack the way that they have been.
Yeah, I mean, the white really seemed to dry up. It's quite possible that Huey on his left, took a powerful white rare or something, or maybe something like a Spectre Ward, and then the Heliod's Pilgrim, skyrocketed in value and became better than that Ancient Silverback, and then, he was just taking the scraps of the white cards, but for him it didn't matter because he had a Pilgrim and a Spectre Ward.
Yeah, no,
I think that's definitely a possibility.
Titanic Growth and Turn to Frog both come back around.
Wow. So he's going to go ahead and take the Titanic Growth there.
Yeah. All right, and... we basically
I'd be very surprised if Huey wasn't white behind him at this point.
Yeah, considering what we haven't seen this pack.
Correct.
Well, we did see him pack 2 fairly decent white cards in the very first pack that he took Triplicate Spirits over. So.
Oh, he did also pass a Broodkeeper early on. So that Heliod's Pilgrim Spectre Ward thing makes even more sense.
It's also important because we did see 2 Inferno Fists that went around this time and disappeared very soon thereafter. They never, I mean, those cards are never going to come back, but it's important to at least keep in mind. That's one of the cards when they sit down after the draft and are talking to each other, they're going to try to figure out where those Inferno Fists landed. All right, well, let's see what Ephro's done to shore up his curve. Like, it looks like he's fairly solidly put himself in white-green at this point. As that Runeclaw Bear makes it in out of the backside of his deck. All right, so that Stab Wound, still a possibility. He had an opportunity at a Verdant Haven, but didn't end up being able to pick one up. So let's see. So tell me what you think of his deck as you're looking through it so far.
It could be quite a bit better. I mean, his first 2 picks, I think, are his best cards. What he's trying to do, well, and the Sanctified Charge that he got pretty late in the first pack. But pack 2 was not good at all for him. He had a very bad pack 2. Even though he was able to move into green here, he really only picked up like a Living Totem.
Yeah. So how much of that do you think was just set up by cards that Huey opened or cards that Ephro might have passed?
I don't know. There are a lot of different factors that can go on in a team draft. I think his opponents may have set up a hook also, which is where you fool somebody into thinking a color is very open with that something like a very late Sanctified Charge, and then you just cut them off of it completely. That's just cutting the head off their draft and giving them a very bad deck. This is a tried and true ancient draft secret when you're team drafting against people.
All right, well, for this deck right now, we see Paragon of the Wilds, which in Huey's mostly white deck, Ephro's mostly white deck. If that was a Paragon of New Dawn, the white Paragon, That would be much better in his deck filled with 1/1 tokens. Very likely.
Definitely. I mean, Raise the Alarm, Triplicate Spirits, all of those cards work so well with the white tokens.
Yeah. But it's going to look like he's going to have additional tokens now with that Raise the Alarm very likely being his pick.
Yeah, he's really hoping that that Midnight Guard is going to table, but I doubt it will.
And the possibility exists. I mean, since if the player that if we think someone's drafting red-white and they take out the Borderland Marauder instead of taking the Midnight Guard, which is a very relevant and a reasonable decision.
Definitely.
There is a way that he could get that 2/3 back, which actually does some pretty nifty things with multiple Raise the Alarms. You can definitely work yourself into some situations. It's not.
Yeah, it's also, I mean, it's great with Triplicate Spirits. You can vote out your Triplicate Spirits, and then you can still block with it, attack with it.
Yeah.
The world is your oyster.
All right, so we have Warden of the Beyond, which doesn't have much, and there's a Hunt the Week, which...
Oh, very easily the best card here.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that we are... he's looking at that Covenant of Blood. He still does have that Stab Wound that's on his radar, and he has a very large number of token generators, so it's possible... most of his creatures are kind of small. It's possible that he doesn't take the Hunt the Week and goes for the Covenant of Blood instead, but I mean, it's looking pretty strongly with that card at the front of the pack that it's going to be Hunt the Week.
I think so. I think I'd be very surprised if he took a card that wasn't Hunt the Week here.
Let's see. I would understand taking the Covenant of Blood. I think the Warden of the Beyond is just up there because it's a white card.
That's reasonable.
So he does take the Covenant of Blood. So it's very likely that he's going to be splashing. He's got an Evolving Wilds in his deck already. He's probably going to be looking to pick up. See, that Sign of Blood is not even a possibility at this point, I don't think. It's Invasive Species or Hunt the Week. And those both clearly make it up there. He's got one Evolving Wilds. He has no copies of Verdant Haven, but he's going to be looking to possibly pick one up if he gets an opportunity. You just have to take the removal spell here.
I would take Hunt the Week, but he does need creatures, so Invasive Species, again, pretty reasonable. I'm surprised by the last pick, too. I think he's definitely playing to what his opponents are trying to draft, which is what you're going to need to do if you want to beat this enemy team. I mean, these are likely easily two of the 5 most powerful teams.
Oh, yes.
In the tournament.
Very clearly. And, I mean, they made it to the top 4. It's a very skill-intensive format. All right.
Wow, that pack for him.
And there we go. We've got a 2/2 first striker for 3 in the Preeminent Captain. He's got a Pillar of Light, which is an excellent removal spell. It's a little better in the Team Sealed format than it is in Team Draft, but still a very valuable removal spell.
Yeah, and he's going to go ahead and take that. Yeah. I like it.
All right. Well... this is what I think. This Sacred Armory is probably going to be his pick here. I mean, I certainly hope that it's a possibility for him. It's a card I really, really like in these white decks because you got a lot of these seemingly insignificant token creatures, and as soon as you can start sinking a little bit of extra mana into them, although it's looking like he might want to take that Sign in Blood.
He also knows about Kurkesh, which makes it a little bit better.
Yeah.
Kurkesh also works with the Goblin Kaboomis that we've seen going around.
Okay.
But he's just going to go ahead and take the best card.
Which is perfectly fine. Might be a little more difficult to cast, although his deck is going to be interesting to see where he ends up in the mana side of things. So we have Charging Rhinos, which is... a
warm body. A very strong warm body, actually.
Yeah, which, considering he was kind of in need of a larger warm body, it seems not too bad in this spot.
That's definitely the pick there.
Oh, yeah. So take a quick note of what else is in the pack and ship it along. All right. So now we start putting together the rest of everything. Venom Sliver.
Yeah, really nice pickup there.
Card, yeah.
I mean, obviously a little bit frustrated that he wasn't able to see a Constricting Sliver at any point in the draft to go with it. But, you know, just any death-touching body with a number before the toughness is something that you're going to want to be playing in Limited because it can attack very freely when you're ahead. It's so good at blocking that your opponent often has to use one of his better removal spells on it. Just a great card here.
So he's likely going to grab this Solemn Offering for his sideboard. Turns out that he does. Better than the Soul Mender. Some things of note for this draft thus far. Ifro has no Siege Worms. Like, none of the big Convoke stuff.
Didn't see any Triplicate Spirits after that pick 1, pack 1. Didn't see any Sanctified Charge after that 5th pick in pack 1. Didn't see any raise the alarms beyond his second pick in pack 1 and his first pick in pack 2 or 3. I mean, this is not especially incredible in terms of deck strength for our Froelich here.
Yeah. So he's got a few options for cards here. Take another Solemn Offering, which might not get played. He might take an Unmake the Graves here. Like at this point, we're just kind of filling in the other 44 cards or 42 cards, whatever it is, that he ends up having in his deck.
Yeah, I mean, Solemn Offering, not the worst. I mean, he doesn't know which team has the Install Artifact deck. All he knows is that it was taken in the first 6 picks during pack 1. So, I mean, there's a 3 out of 5 chance that one of the opposing team's decks is an artifact-themed deck, and having those 2 Solemn Offerings in a sideboard might be very, very important. Circle of Flame, a pretty strong sideboard card against him. I mean, he does have double Raise the Alarm and Triplicate Spirits. Then again, he also has Solemn Offerings, so when he plays against Huey, if he's red, then he can always go ahead and sideboard appropriately. Battlefield Forge, I mean, he's not playing white-red, but ooh, that's great. That's a wonderful sideboard card to come back here.
Very late plummet, yeah.
And it could even be, I think it's probably a main deck consideration.
Yeah, depending, and it's especially if they get to the side and start looking at each other's decks and realize that one of them is blue, none of them are blue, so.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this has been an interesting draft.
Yeah, it definitely could have gone better. His deck is capable of winning games, but I know Eric, and I know that he certainly would be hoping for something greater.
Yeah. Well, I'm definitely going to be interested to see what his opinion is when he gets back to the table with his friends, because the rest of his team, I mean, everybody's decks are kind of